My wife won $1 million lottery. Like she said, apart from her parents, she changed everything else. After our divorce, I worked several jobs to support my parents and raise my daughter. But I overworked myself and had a car accident on my way to work, dying on the spot. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn on the day she bought the lottery ticket. This time I planned to take her route. Other than my parents and daughter, I'm changing everything else. At that moment of rebirth, I was cutting fruit for my daughter, Emily. After briefly freezing, I quickly realized what was happening. I reassured Emily and told her to do her homework when Maria's call came. She said, "There's a work event tonight. I'll be home late." I swiftly adjusted my emotions and responded, "Today's our anniversary. I bought lots of food." She replied, "Old couples don't need these flashy things. Making money is what matters now." I chuckled. Everything was exactly like my past life. I stifled my inner excitement and casually said, "All right, you take care. Oh, today's lottery day. Send me the numbers." My willingness to cooperate softened her tone. After all, she still needed me for the lottery. I just agreed and didn't bother with the usual get home early. After hanging up, I sent some random numbers to her. Then, I texted my dad another set, urging him to head to the local shop and buy a 10 times ticket. I had him go instead of me, just like Maria did, because I wanted no more ties with her. Today was Maria's last day buying tickets. The next, she suddenly filed for divorce. Said she had no feelings for me, we should part ways civilly. At first, I refused, thinking it was absurd, asking her to calm down. But she rushed things, turned cruel when being nice didn't work, bringing her family in to bully me and Emily. I finally agreed, saying I'd only divorce if I got the house and my daughter. Maria agreed without hesitation, even generously left me $100,000 as Emily's support payment. I thought I got a great deal and hurriedly signed the papers, in fear of her backing out. She moved out soon, living with her parents post-divorce. Frankly, her generosity surprised me. I thought she just wanted out. A month later, she swagged around in a luxury car with her new husband, looking elated. That's when I realized I'd been duped, helped her count money while being sold out. Maria boasted, "Billy, a fortune teller said you attract wealth, bring luck to spouses." He was right. That last ticket hit the jackpot. I bought 5 times, won $2. 5 million. 10 years of persistence finally paid off. My heart shook, skipping a beat. Did you say my last numbers won? I'd remember them till death. They were my and my daughter's birthdays. She gloated over my shock, grinning arrogantly. Honestly, Billy, if I hadn't secretly checked your fortune, I wouldn't have stayed with you. But you had no moves I couldn't counter. Turns out, she remarried the day after our divorce. I'd met the guy, Edward, average-looking but young. Once, Maria drove me from work with Edward in the car. Said she was just giving him a lift. Later explained, he was a rural boy, uneducated, yet honest, helping out as company storage clerk. I saw no problem with coworkers helping each other. Trust's a basic in marriage. If they hadn't exposed themselves, I'd never believe they hooked up. A match in cunning, 2 of a kind. I was fuming, "Maria, you're despicable. It was my choice of numbers. The prize should be shared." Edward shot me an incredulous look. "Billy, you've gone mad if you think you're owed anything. Edward bought the ticket, nothing to do with you." I felt suffocated. "You're shameless. Emily's your daughter too. How could you do this to her?" I gave what was hers. "Don't be greedy." That day ended with me humiliated, deeply upset for days. Unable to let it go, I eventually had someone check the convenience store's footage from that winning day. Turns out it was indeed Edward who bought the ticket. They meticulously schemed, disgusting to the core. Later, consumed with my mom's medical needs and caring for my family, I abandoned their pursuit. Expensive treatments tore my finances apart, leaving me exhausted and in debt. Maria refused help, insisting she'd done her part. I juggled multiple jobs, always on the run, scrambling for money. Exhaustion claimed my life in a crash. Dying, I couldn't stop worrying about my parents and daughter. But fate smiled, resetting my clock to just before the lottery win, my second chance. This round, my previous fortune would not be stolen. I'd protect it fiercely. That night, when results were drawn, I compared them cautiously, joy surging as things panned out. Holding back elation, I called my dad, sharing the good news. Fearing he'd be overwhelmed, I'd been conditioning him step by step. Thankfully, he was calm as ever, but after initial excitement, choked up. "Billy, it's amazing. Now Mom's medical bills won't be an issue. Dad, don't worry. She'll get the top care from now. Mom had chronic kidney disease, needing thousands monthly for dialysis. They worked hard all their lives to get me to college without insurance. All costs were out of pocket. Now we could afford the best treatment, even transplant, if a match came through." I urged Dad to safeguard the ticket and not mention a word of the win to avoid any trouble. Being their only child, they loved me dearly. I knew my winnings were safe from greedy hands. Next, I do like Maria, everything changes except my parents and daughter. In great spirits, I went downstairs and bought Emily the durian she'd long wanted. She jumped with joy, savoring each piece, tears trickling down as I watched her smile. Emily wiped my tears and fed me a bite. "Dad, don't be sad. Eat some durian, it'll sweeten your heart. This stuff is rich, I eat it once and I'm done." I felt a pang of bitterness. Maria doesn't spend much on our daughter because she has to support her child from another relationship. Whenever Emily wanted something nice but expensive, I'd secretly buy it for her. Now I realize Maria was tight with money because she was funding her other life outside. The thought of it made me so angry. I gently touched Emily's smooth little face and said with a smile, "Eat up. Who says you can't have more? After this, we'll buy another. Whatever you want, don't hold back." After comforting Emily, I went inside to help Maria pack, using the time to line up my thoughts. Maria works in admin. It's a dead-end job, and her earnings can probably be counted on one hand. She's always dreamed of striking it rich overnight, playing the lottery for 10 years straight. She obsessively believed a fortune teller who said I'd bring her luck and I'd strike it big with her. Over time, it became an obsession. She'd ask me for numbers and pray daily for wealth from the gods. Now the jackpot eludes us, and I'm planning to divorce her. This won't be easy for her to accept. Then there's Edward. By now, he's got a 3-year-old son and Maria's pregnant with his child. If Maria doesn't marry him, those kids remain in the shadows, facing issues with documents, school, and more. She's more desperate than anyone else here. Edward is my best shot here. Maria's secret life can be exposed. I'll rip off her cover so fast she won't know what hit her. I waited for Maria to come home, ready to lay some groundwork. She showed up at 10 p.m., looking tired and down. I asked mockingly, "Did you win the lottery?" Annoyed, she replied, "Win what? Enough. How come others win but not me? I've been at it for a decade. My turn should have been here by now." I savored her bitterness. Others did win. $50 million right here in town. If only it were me. She wanted to continue but smartly held back. I knew the ending. It's a joke among the lottery crowd. Others joke, Maria lived it. She turned the conversation to complaints about me. "You, Billy. The master said you bring luck, have hidden talents." All nonsense. 10 years and nothing from your numbers. She seemed like a jackal that's been robbed of its prey, left only to whimper and snarl. The more she fumed, the more pleased I felt, basking in the moment. I snapped back. "Who told you to believe it? I'm no god of wealth. Why blame me? Was it me buying the tickets? You begged for numbers. I've never even tallied the money you've thrown at these tickets. Quit blaming me and don't buy any more if you can." Red-faced, she shouted, "I'm better off believing a pig. I've been delusional." "Good, don't waste money then. Keep it peaceful." Maria fell silent and angrily tossed her coat onto the couch. Nothing went right outside, and now she's annoyed at home. Good. The less we talk, the better. I continued my routine, untouched. Minutes later, she stormed into the bedroom, grabbed a blanket, and settled on the couch. I couldn't help but laugh. This was perfect. "Maria, stay angry. Starting tomorrow, you'll be even angrier. Let's see how this plays out." After a night of cooling off, a false sense of peace returned. Maria and I maintained the facade during breakfast. As she left for work, I casually mentioned, the durians by the entrance dropped in price. A steal. Got Emily one yesterday. You didn't try it, have it after work. Annoyed, she retorted, I don't like it, durians are expensive. You guys eat. When I get home depends today. Alright, just text me then. Sure enough, nearing the end of the workday, Maria texted she'd be late with work. I quickly replied, okay. After tidying up, I changed into more comfortable clothes and put on a hat. I took a cab to Edward's neighborhood. When Maria suddenly picked me up that time saying she had to swing by, I noted the neighborhood but lacked specifics like the building. The place was old, security was just for show, with staff present as figureheads. I slipped inside and hid behind some landscaping, waiting. Within 10 minutes, Maria's car appeared, parked quickly in an empty spot. She got out carrying a plastic bag with what seemed like a durian inside. That attitude. Her sweet daughter eats durian. So of course, the beloved son must have some too. I knew pushing her buttons this morning would lure her here today. Right now, every day counts as time is money to me. Maria walked down a side path. I kept my distance, blending into the crowd. Not far in, I saw Edward coming, holding hands with a small boy. The boy spotted Maria and gleefully ran to her, yelling, "Mom!" Maria crouched down, dropped the durian, raised the boy high, and showered him with kisses. Edward stroked her pregnant belly, beaming with happiness. Then Maria picked up the durian, hooked her arm into Edward's, and wandered home, led by their hopping little boy. A picture of domestic bliss, a pregnant partner picking up their love after work. Seen as such, it's enviable, a family of 4 seemingly cradling happiness. But not to me. This moment was crucial. A punch aimed at Maria, captured for posterity. As soon as the boy leaped towards her, my heart raced as I ducked behind a tree, setting my phone to record. I was so smart, I would have patted myself on the back. With their apartment location noted, I waited in the shade. I wasn't busting them in one go. I needed a strategic approach. I called my dad, asking him to take Emily to his place. During the upcoming showdown with Maria, I didn't want her witnessing the ugliness. A couple of hours later, Maria left. When she disappeared from view, I headed toward Edward's. On the second floor, one home was active, another empty. I kept my phone recording, securing myself from unnecessary hassle. Edward was stunned to see me. Internally, I was more composed than ever. As his legitimate wife, I had the upper hand. My assertive stance would catch him off guard. I lifted my chin, maintaining a serious face, eyes locked on him. He was clearly panicked, his mouth wide open, and it took him a while to finally blurt out, "Billy, what are you doing here?" I didn't say anything. I just looked at him coldly. He got even more nervous. "Billy, why don't you come in and sit?" I said, "No need." "How long has Maria been pregnant?" He looked away. "Over 4 months. Oh, what a pity. She won't be able to fit into a wedding dress soon." "Wedding dress?" He looked at me in disbelief, confused. "Isn't one illegitimate kid enough? You want another one? Billy, you found out?" "I'm sorry." "Is sorry supposed to fix this? If sorry worked, we wouldn't need cops. You guys committed bigamy, you know that?" Edward continued to be terrified, tears welling up in his eyes. Oddly enough, seeing him like this made me feel pretty good. "So now that I know everything, what's your plan?" "I don't know, Billy. She said she would divorce you. She just left. Want me to call her back?" He wasn't stupid. In a pinch, he thought of using Maria to pressure me. "No need to call her. It's not that complicated. I just came to tell you that you both make me sick, and I'm not going to divorce her. I'm going to drag you both down." Edward reached out to steady himself against the door frame as if he suddenly lost all strength. Tears streaming, he said, "No way. She promised she'd divorce you soon and marry me." I sneered. "And you believe that crap?" "Whatever, just so you know, I've gathered enough evidence of your dirty business. If I need to, I'll see you in court. I gotta call her. She lied to me. She lied." Edward babbled as he grabbed his phone from the shoe cabinet. I smirked. Maybe she didn't lie, but I'm not easy to deal with. If you're gonna sneak around, at least do it smartly if you want to get ahead. It's not gonna be easy. Edward, make your move. With blatant provocation, I didn't bother with him anymore. I descended the stairs and headed home, feeling lighthearted. Soon enough, the storm bound to follow from Edward would overwhelm Maria. Sure enough, not long after I got home, Maria called. As soon as I answered, she started screaming so loud, I immediately hit the record button. Billy, are you insane? If you have a grudge, come at me. Why go mess with him? Are you even human? I placed the phone on the dining table and happily peeled shrimp, savoring each spicy, delicious bite. Maria, keep shouting. The more, the better. People are especially irrational when they're shocked and furious, especially when they think they're confronting someone they can easily manipulate. Being aggressive and shameless is her go-to move. Listening to her shameless words, I finally understood what it meant for a couple to become bitter enemies. At last, she finished yelling. She seemed to suddenly realize I hadn't responded at all or even cried, which was clearly not what she expected. She then shouted, Billy, are you even listening? I've said so much and you haven't said a damn thing. I coldly replied, Maria, keep yelling. Maybe you haven't grasped the situation? You're the one caught cheating. I could easily get you locked up for a few days if I wanted. Don't think raising your voice will scare me. I'm the one you should be pleading with. I'm done wasting words on you. After I said that, I hung up right away. Immediately, she kept calling back, and I kept declining the calls. About an hour later, I heard the door lock click. Maria walked in, her eyes slightly red, looking exhausted. I stood up, eyeing her warily. She sat down on the couch, looking dejected but staring at me intently. I leaned against the bedroom door, gripping my phone and glaring at her. She cared about her reputation but was all talk. I knew she wouldn't have the guts to act recklessly. She must have spent that hour considering her best options. Maybe she even regretted yelling at me on the phone like that. Finally, she lit a cigarette and spoke in a low voice. Billy, let's get a divorce. Her taking the initiative made me glad, though I pretended to be angry. Why? This is my home, my marriage. I did nothing wrong. Why should I let you two win? She coldly said, right now, divorce is the best option. It's best for you. I don't have feelings for you anymore. Dragging this out won't help any of us. You think I still have feelings for you? I just don't want you two lovebirds to have it easy because you both disgust me. Maria looked at me hard, then seemed to give up and softened her tone. Billy, I messed up. I apologize, but things can't go back. I can't just watch as my two kids go motherless. And you can just watch Emily go motherless? Maria, are you even human? I have no choice. Tell me, Billy, what will it take for you to agree to a divorce? She finally got to what I was waiting for. I smiled. This house and our son stay with me, plus 10 grand for Emily's support. I'll divorce you first thing in the morning. After all that setup, I was intent on draining her dry. She immediately flipped, shouting, Billy, why don't you just go rob a bank? What? You can't bear it? For your happy little family, be a sport. Real women step up. Where am I supposed to live if you take the house? You're just too damn greedy. You can go back to your dad's, move in with your new guy, whatever. Where you live isn't my problem or concern. My concern is where Emily and I stay. Maria, remember, you're the one at fault. If we end up in court, you might end up leaving with nothing. At that moment, Maria's phone rang. She glanced at me and answered. In an instant, her expression changed dramatically. Edward, don't do anything stupid. I'm on my way. Don't act rash. Maria looked panicked and rushed out. Gritting her teeth, she said, Edward is threatening suicide. Billy, you better hope he doesn't do something crazy. Not my problem. I spat back, feeling pleased inside. Finally, the side piece was showing some strategy, albeit a short-sighted one, fixated on getting what she wants. So I decided to throw Maria a bone. As she walked away, I yelled after her, Don't worry. I'm not going to hold back on sharing those winning lotto numbers with you, even after the divorce. She paused for a moment before hurrying off again. Maria didn't come back home that night. When the day broke, she called me. Billy, let's go with your plan. Draft the agreement, and we'll be there at 10 a.m. All right, bring all your documents. We need to complete everything today, the house and the cash, I said. It all went smoothly. That night, I insisted Maria move out of my place. Holding the divorce certificate, I couldn't be happier. I was finally free from her. Originally, I could have gathered more evidence to file for divorce so Maria would leave with nothing. But that would have taken too much time and effort. Couldn't wait. I had more important things on my plate. The next day, I claimed my lottery winnings, fully prepared. Even after taxes, I got 40 million. Right after, I moved back into my parents' house and put that property up for sale. I won't cut ties with Maria, but I don't want her finding me either. I arranged for Dad to take good care of Mom. I even hired a caregiver for them. Meanwhile, I was looking for a suitable place and visiting the hospital frequently. Without worrying about money, my mom's anxiety faded. She was positive and cooperative with her treatment. My dad was smiling again, both in the best spirits they've been in for years. Half a month later, we moved into a new home. It's a relatively new second-hand house that didn't need renovations. I just replaced some furniture and hired cleaners to spruce it up. My daughter started elementary school, and transferring schools was a breeze. I got her into a nearby school. She adjusted quickly and loved the better facilities. As for me and her mom's divorce, she was only a bit sad for 2 days. As long as I can stay with Dad, I'm a happy kid. Especially now I can be with Grandma and Grandpa every day. I'm happier, she said. Emily is a girl, and Maria's parents hardly ever checked in after she was born. We didn't live together, and they never visited their granddaughter. When we took Emily to see them, they were distant, rarely interacting warmly, and constantly bugged us to have a second child. Emily didn't feel much for them because of this. I talked to Maria about this many times. She always said they were old and stubborn-minded, so I shouldn't take it to heart. After all, we didn't live together and just let it pass. In my previous life, I endured this. Now I'm finally away from these heartless people. During this time, Maria shamelessly texted me asking for the lottery numbers. Seems she was still dreaming of overnight riches. Fine, I'll humor her. Dreams make anyone remarkable. I casually sent her some numbers. Whatever, I could send numbers my whole life if I wanted, as long as she didn't mess with me. I just didn't believe, now that she was no longer my wife, she could bring me good luck. A month after the divorce, Maria sent me an invite. I looked at it. It was her wedding invite with Edward. A 3-year-old kid, 5 months pregnant, and still having a full-blown wedding? Inviting the ex-husband too? Their thinking is pretty wild. So unnecessary. I bet Edward insisted. She was young, carrying Edward's son, so she's like a queen to him. Everything she didn't get before, she's getting now and wants to flaunt it at me. I was too curious not to go. I was sure if I didn't, she'd be upset. I didn't want to let her down. I told Maria I'd definitely attend the wedding. On the wedding day, I had a fine suit ready and put a lot of effort into looking great. At 38, I still cut a fine figure and looked vibrant when dressed up well. If nothing else, I wanted to show everyone that I was better off without Maria. To avoid unnecessary trouble, I parked my new BMW a bit farther away and walked leisurely over. Edward was in his wedding suit, looking a tad nervous. Maria had let herself go a bit these past couple of years, looking a bit worn out. In that sense, they matched well. I glanced around. Amidst 5 couples welcoming guests, they were the least impressive, the venue the most sparse. Her dad in a suit, with hair gel and a small bag across his chest, was helping with gifts. But the bag was sparse. I guess they hadn't received much. Her mom was also there, making small talk with an older man. When they saw me, all of them looked wary, except Maria, whose eyes had a genuine spark of surprise. Edward grinned provocatively. "Billy, didn't expect you'd actually show up." Her dad, annoyed, asked, "Why are you here?" "She's remarrying, and as her ex-husband, it's inappropriate for you to attend." I smiled. "Sir, I didn't want to come, but the happy couple insisted. Hard to refuse such kindness." Maria quickly interjected, "Yeah, divorced or not, we're friends. I invited Billy myself." Her dad glared at her, always making trouble. Maria told me honestly didn't want a wedding, but Edward insisted. Inviting you was his idea, didn't expect you'd come. Guests are guests. Exactly as I thought, she thought I was joking. Who volunteers for such awkward situations? But I didn't want their wedding too dull. Edward smug said, Billy, see? I said Maria would marry me. She keeps her word. Does anything I want. Well, congratulations. I replied loudly, drawing attention. I'm just here to wish you well. She's got his baby. She has to agree. She was the other woman for so long. Of course, today is worth celebrating for Real. My response grabbed even more attention. A few older guys mumbled. That bump, they sure got hitched for the kid. Huh? The guy said the groom was the other man. Other man rising up, having a big bash so shameless. My ex-mother-in-law stormed towards the gossiping uncles, and they quickly scattered. Both main characters looked pretty upset, and Edward gave Maria a pleading look. Maria forced a smile. Billy, since you're here, why don't you join us? Of course, I'm here, might as well see it through. I hope you do too. Happy wedding, I said with a cheerful smile as I handed Maria a red envelope. But my quick-to-act ex-father-in-law snatched it from me, peeked inside, and stuffed it in his little bag. Edward grimaced with annoyance. He probably really wanted to know how much I gave, but his money-minded father-in-law didn't give him the chance. As the side dude, Edward was probably in for a rough ride. I obviously didn't give a huge gift, just enough to pass as a regular friend. After that, I went into the hall in high spirits and found my seat. Maria's family booked a medium-sized hall, about 30 tables. I gotta hand it to them. For a second marriage, they're going all out. They must be hoping for some wedding gifts. I found an empty seat and started scrolling through videos on my phone. But after waiting a while, there were still half-empty tables. I noticed some folks pointing at me, whispering, her ex-husband actually came to the wedding. How odd. I'd still say her ex-husband looks better. I turned around, and sure enough, it was all Maria's extended family and relatives talking. Sigh, where there are aunties, there's gossip. When they noticed I was looking at them, they awkwardly smiled and shut up. Just then, a familiar guy sat next to me, looking at me sympathetically. Didn't expect to see you here. You are? You look familiar. We've met. I'm Steve, from Maria's company. I saw you at a company event once when they could bring family. Oh yeah, now I remember, I said with a smile. Steve's a nice guy from Maria's department. Steve, nice to have someone here to talk to, I said happily. What brought you here? He asked, curious and clearly intrigued by the gossip. Maria invited me. Steve's jaw dropped slightly. Then he nodded in understanding. Then he whispered, let me tell you, lots of folks aren't coming today. I'm only here because I felt I had to be polite. Surprised, I asked, why not? He gestured outside. Everyone knows about Maria's situation. This is her second marriage, and she's marrying someone from her company. Rumors about a love child and all. People say she should have kept it low-key. But inviting everyone like this, they didn't want to come since they'd still need to give a gift. Makes sense, I nodded, playing it cool. Took me a lot of effort days ago to spread the news with a new phone number. Finally, food started coming out. With Steve there to chat, the meal was actually enjoyable. Steve shook his head at me. I just don't get it. Why ditch a good husband for someone like that? I refilled his drink. Come on, why think too much? It's like she's got a throne to inherit or something. The newlyweds went through the ceremony in front of half-empty tables, making the atmosphere awkward. Maria's smile became forced, her face tense, and her actions more robotic. She shot Edward displeased looks, but he was oblivious, still grinning wide. I half expected Maria to snap any moment and throw a tantrum. Meanwhile, Steve and I, feeling like old pals, had a great time laughing and chatting. As we left, we even exchanged numbers, planning to play badminton sometime. I may have won big, but I know better than to squander it. As a finance person, I know the importance of managing your money so it manages you. I split the remaining money into several parts. A savings account, my mom's health care, and some investment projects to let the money grow. For years, I dabbled in investments, gaining quite a bit of insight. I didn't have much to invest before, but I still remember some top stocks that felt like free ATMs. Life became busy and fulfilling. Maria and I started talking more, not just about lottery-related matters. She was surprised at how well I was doing and asked about it. I told her, I'm blessed. Without a husband, I only get luckier. She questioned if I'd won the lottery, but I ignored such silly questions. Still, she would confess her troubles about work, in-laws, her husband, and stubborn kids. Such a drag. She made her bed. I warned her to stop or I'll block her. Later, Steve invited me to work out and I found out about Maria's actual plight. When I saw him, Steve said, Billy, you wouldn't believe it, but Maria's having a tough time. Isn't she all set with a partner and a daughter? Her dirt was dug up at work. Everybody thinks she's got bad character, especially the boss, who's really tough and hates women who cheat in marriages, considering them low and irresponsible. And then, Edward got fired. Maria was given a choice: quit or move to the warehouse job. Did she quit? Nope. She's sticking it out with the warehouse gig at a third of her pay. Seems like society still has its morals, I chuckled. Absolutely. People can't stand sneaky types like that. Steve, full of gossip, looked pleased we talked it out. After a good exercise session, we both felt lively. Maria's compliance isn't passive. It's strategic. With young, skilled people everywhere and a tough job market, she knew her odds if she lost her job. She had no choice. She submitted to fate. But what truly pushed her to the brink happened much later. When she was close to giving birth the second time, her son suddenly got severely sick, hospitalized, and diagnosed with leukemia. She got so anxious, she went into early labor, and the baby ended up in an incubator. They were suddenly dealing with medical costs and caring for both children and Maria all at once. The whole family had to pitch in, and Maria was worn out by the ordeal. She originally had her eyes on the 10 grand I was holding, planning to shamelessly come ask for it. She actually thought I still had feelings for her and wouldn't let her suffer. But before she got the chance, another twist came up. Her beloved son was diagnosed with leukemia and needed a family member's stem cells for his treatment. Yet, the blood test showed her blood type didn't match her son's. Maria was puzzled. If he didn't take after her, then it must be his father's type. She quickly grabbed 3 test reports to take a closer look. This discovery hit her like a thunderbolt, leaving her numb from head to toe. The son's blood type didn't match either hers or her husband's. Both of them were type O, yet their son was type A. Even with her limited knowledge, she knew 2 O types couldn't produce an A. This meant either the child had been switched at birth, or he wasn't hers. She'd often hear her mom saying the kid didn't resemble her at all. She used to reassure her mom that sons usually look like their dads. Now, she felt as if she'd grown a field of green grass on her head. To find the truth, she kept quiet and didn't tell anyone. She secretly took hair samples from her son and husband for a DNA test. The results showed the boy was related to Edward, but not to her. It meant the surrogate child was never from her egg. Maria collapsed onto the ground, drained of all energy. The feeling of being an unwitting mother made her slap herself hard several times. A few hours later, she rushed back to the hospital, told her parents the truth, and sent them home. Her attitude toward Edward changed drastically, turning cold as ice. She confronted Edward, demanding a divorce. With the truth out, Edward had no choice but to get on his knees and beg her, confessing the boy was actually from him and his first love, not from surrogate. Maria threw a fierce remark. Haven't you harmed me enough? Let his real mom treat him, don't look for me. After that, she took her own child home, completely ignoring Edward. I don't know how Edward managed during those days. A sick child needing massive medical bills, grieving the loss of another child who wasn't nearby either. It must have been heart-wrenching. But Maria's real suffering had just begun. Maybe it was karma. Life keeps tabs on all our choices and will make us pay sooner or later. In the coffee shop, the woman facing me had become much thinner, looking listless and defeated. It sharply contrasted with my own life, vibrant and full of life. After her repeated pleas, I finally agreed to meet up with her and hear her out about those hardships. I nodded occasionally to show sympathy. At the end, she looked at me eagerly, hope shimmering in her eyes as if expecting me to say something. Not wanting to disappoint her, I said, "Your coffee's getting cold, you should drink it." Her eyes dimmed instantly, and she pleaded, "Billy, I've divorced Edward. I've always loved you. Can we remarry?" I couldn't fathom how she managed to get that divorce. Must have been tough. But seriously, does she think I'm an idiot for saying such a thing? I couldn't help it. I choked on my coffee and burst into laughter. It was mid-afternoon, sunshine pouring in. The cafe wasn't crowded, and we were tucked away in a small booth, so I laughed pretty recklessly. Maria seemed a bit rattled, her face a mix of anxiety and fear. Once I was done laughing, I asked her, "Maria, do you think you're some big movie star? The heroine of a cheesy novel? A female tycoon? Think every man's lining up to marry you?" She looked utterly confused, repeatedly saying that even though she had nothing now, she'd treat me well in the future, and mentioned that Emily needed a complete family. I got even angrier hearing about Emily. Thinking back on Maria's cold, heartless demeanor made me feel that staying even a minute longer would only insult myself. I raised my hand to call the waiter and asked for the bill. Standing up to leave, I coldly told her, "Everything that happened today is your own doing. The result is your karma. Listening to your sob story was the last bit of pity I'll ever have for you. From now on your own. I never want to see you again." Seeing her devastated face brought me immense satisfaction. I paid and left in style. Once outside, I blocked her number and deleted everything related to her. I wanted her out of my life completely. Half a year later, my mom finally got a matching kidney, and the surgery went smoothly. With the careful attention from my dad and me, she recovered remarkably well. After leaving the hospital, I let my dad stay home to take care of her. They spoiled Emily rotten, trying out new dishes every day, a blissful family time. During this period, Steve tried to meet up a few times, but I was so busy I had to cancel. After a few months, finally got some free time. I met up with Steve for a hot pot meal, and inevitably, Maria became a topic in our conversation. Steve mentioned Maria eventually lost her job because Edward frequently caused disturbances at her workplace, demanding money for their son's treatment. His antics made the office atmosphere unbearable, and the company finally pressured her into quitting. She tried job hunting elsewhere but hit dead ends everywhere. To raise her son, she opened a pancake stall near her old company's snack alley. I heard it did quite well, even better than working her old warehouse job. When I learned about it, I drove my white BMW over to see her. Though I didn't get out, I watched from the car window as she stood behind a basic food cart, apron-clad, busy making pancakes for 2 customers. Her movements were a bit clumsy but manageable. Remarkably, she didn't even know how to make scrambled eggs with tomatoes before. Picking up these skills was no small feat. After her customers left, she pulled some cash from her apron pocket and counted it carefully, though there couldn't be much since most people pay by mobile these days. She looked more worn out and greasier than before. The Maria I once knew no longer existed. Her circumstances truly evoke sympathy. During a lull, she seemed bored and looked around. When she glanced my way, her expression froze as if she spotted something, but she quickly looked away. Passers-by appraised my car with various expressions. Can't blame them. A sleek BMW parked here at this noisy street corner is quite eye-catching, even out of place. Soon enough, I turned the car around and drove away. Maria, today marks our final goodbye. For the rest of my life, with no wife, I'll focus solely on myself.